So anyway, yeah, we'll get that out of the way. Let's talk about the Sargon thing. Okay. So let me just find something to put up. Here we go. Red State will do. Sure, people will mock it for being a blog. Right. So, for those of you that follow, I don't know what you want to really call it. I've never liked the word skeptic. I've never liked the word skeptic. I don't think it really describes what these people are and what they do, and I think the negative connotation that it's kind of got associated with is accurate. I find a lot of them to be, you know, like contrarian wouldn't do it justice either, because I don't believe they necessarily adopt stances on the premise that they're trying to be contrary to the mainstream. It just so happens that they stand out because a lot of their stances are contrary. It's not a community. It never has been a community. That's another thing. When you talk about the skeptic community, it's a loose association of YouTubers, from what I could tell, that basically all had similar viewpoints, particularly on the matter of that nebulous term political correctness. And they were all like just hustling to, to kind of, oh, we'll build a network and we'll all be able to get more views that way. In terms of overlap, like, I just don't think there's really a lot of overlap at all in some of these ideas. I think a lot of them are very different people. I think some of them are really cynical, grifter types who, I've said this, like the quartering, that guy. I think he's a grifter. I think he's, I don't think he has anything in terms of a solution to say. I think this website he's opening, what is it, exclusively games, I think it's a grift. I think he's seen that people are, he's identified an opportunity and he's sweeping in. He's got no formal training. I don't think he's fit to be an editor of a website. And I think the idea that he's going to try and present a politically neutral website is farcical, because you can inject politics via omission into a discussion by not bringing up something. You can take an inherently political stance through silence, right? I mean, you all understand that. So yeah, I never I'm not a fan of him per se. I agree that he was completely fucked over in MTG. I think it was completely unfair. I think characterizing him as like a transphobe or whatever is unfair. I think he's just a troll. And honestly, if you graduate from troll to editor of a publication, I have some concerns about that, frankly. That's like some Jack Posobiec shit. I'm not interested. So I think a lot of these people are grifters. I've said it before. I've tried to get Dave McCullen on the show a few times. He's another guy that I think is very cynical in how he presents his stuff. I'm sure he believes it, but I also think he is only interested in presenting the side that panders to his audience. Which brings me to Sargon. Okay. So I followed Sargon for a long, long time. And I remember the old Sargon, the pre-camera Carl Benjamin, the guy who would actually take time over his videos, would script them out. His videos were about philosophy, ideas, history. He did a lot of interesting stuff back in the day. Now, sure, if you go back as far as I do, you remember he did like some fucking 9/11 conspiracy videos, which he's obviously subsequently renounced. He's because you have to. I don't know if he still believes it or whatever. I got no insight. But he did 9/11 truther videos. He I think he did some UFO stuff as well, if I remember rightly. It's hard because but whatever you want to say about his videos on like philosophy, history, the classics, they were always well thought out and well scripted. He was a in a lot of ways. YouTube philosopher, I think, is a reasonable characterization of his early work. So I used to like Sargon, his content back then. I used to like his content. But it became very clear, I want to say, even in 2014, when the whole Gamergate thing was kicking off, he, was talking about, this whole injection of feminism into games journalism, mainstream culture, what it was doing in terms of marginalizing existing fan bases. And again, didn't have much of a problem with that. But where the problems for me with Sargon's content really start to begin, it's round about once we get to the post-Anita Sarkeesian phase of the online culture wars, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. There was a point where he started. I think he just woke up one day and he realized, holy shit, like I'm scripting these videos out. And I take, weeks on writing the script and researching things and putting citations in. I can't be asked to do that anymore. My channel's blowing up. You think he had 300,000 followers at this point. I'm just gonna start. I can get all the rewards from doing less work, so why wouldn't I do that? And you can see the change right about the time the Thinkery as a channel gets opened. That, there were a number of videos where it was like, I was embarrassed for him, frankly, like videos that he put on his main channel where he was talking about like articles and studies, and he clearly hadn't even read the article or the study beyond the synopsis. He hadn't actually looked at the data contained within, which is a cardinal fucking sin when you're presenting yourself as somebody that is rational and somebody that wants to, break this hysteria, and the culture of feelings over facts, how paraphrasing his, modus operandi. So, it's problematic, isn't it? If you then go and get fundamental things wrong, if you say the exact opposite, and I think H Bomber Guy's done this, did a take now. And again, I'm not really a fan of H Bomber Guy. He comes off as incredibly smug, very self-serving. But he did wicked Dark Souls videos, so there's that. But anyway, I think he did a takedown on him he misread some trans study. So I think at the end of the day, one of the things I hate about this debate culture and these faux intellectuals we're getting on YouTube, I think a lot of them, they consider a day on Google as research. I see this on both sides, honestly. I see people literally like, well, I'll just Google this, Wikipedia that, right? I'm informed. And they put out videos that have very real inherent flaws because they're ultimately designed to, first of all, nobody ever presents an argument on a YouTube video where they're wrong. Nobody actually says, and I looked at this, and I looked at this, and I looked at this, and I realized what I thought was full of shit, actually. So thanks for watching the video, but, my channel's a lie. Like, you're never going to see that, are you? Whereas actually in a lot of academia, you will see people who they have a premise, they investigate, they collate evidence, and they prove themselves wrong over the course of their investigations. And, and it's the investigation itself that has the value.
That's right.
Hey, Thomas, how you doing? One of our editing team in there. So anyway, why am I prefacing all of this? Because I guess what I'm about to talk about, I'm a biased source. Okay, so I need you to understand that. I think Sargon disappeared up his own arse somewhere in 2015, 2016. As I said, around about the time he started putting himself on camera, I think Sargon disappeared up his own asshole, became incredibly fixated on this cult of personality that was building up around him, and stopped caring about his work. Or his work was basically becoming like almost like a fucking knockoff Bearing, at least Bering doesn't have any pretensions of being a great thinker. Bering's a down-to-earth Aussie who just says, like, look at this stupid cunt. And we all go, yeah, that is fucking stupid. Sound. And then you move on with your day. You know, Sargon was like, you know, the way he talks in a very deliberate, slow pace to evoke the, you know, to evoke thoughts of a scholarly man or a professor. And it's just like, listen, you know, the thinkery is throwaway garbage. I mean, it's like what I'm doing now, right? I read the news, I give an opinion. This is throwaway content. I'll still put it up on the YouTube channel, but I would in no way want to be like remembered as, oh, his contribution was he, you know, read the news and broke it down for people while injecting his opinion, and, you know, did it in a very one-sided reactionary way to pander to his audience. I'm not interested in that, frankly. So I'm very biased. I think Sargon, especially with this whole UKIP thing that he's doing now, it's like, it's just the fucking, you know, the hubris of it all. That he is, you know, he clearly hit a point where he started to believe his own bullshit. And that's where you're fucked, man. When you start believing your own bullshit, you are fucked. Like, very hard to come back from that. So I think his work's been on a downward trajectory for some time. I think he's one of these like culture war refugees where it's like you just get entrenched in the fucking culture war mindset, you know, and everyone has their enemy, you know. To the leftists, they see the alt-right everywhere. To the you know, conservative skeptics, anti-SJW crowd, they see SJWs and liberals everywhere, and never the twain shall meet. They are the enemy. Everything they do stupid. When our side does it, it's okay. And this is just not productive. And I've seen too many people that I considered a few years ago to be fine minds that produce good content just hunker down, just you know, and they're just firing salvos off all the time, you know, in this culture war that's never going to get resolved because you know, neither of you are right. You don't even know, you can't even accurately identify the enemy, and yet you're fighting this war. It's fucking stupid. So yeah, and listen, there's another good one. This Week in Stupid. Prime example. I thought that was a nice little digestive, very similar to what we were doing with I Hate It Here, and, you know, now with the Richard Lewis show. I think it's a great format. I think it's a great format for Sargon. That's the stuff he should be, you know, in my opinion, I think that plays to his strengths. I think trying to go political, you know, and he just does embarrassing things all the time. He just fucks himself up all the time. You go and, right, I'll tell you something. He's smart enough to be cynical, and one of the things he cynically has done is he's trying to position himself literally as a centrist, because he realized it would be harming to his brand if you know, he was considered alt-right. Alt-right doesn't mean anything anymore. The left have completely overused that term. Everyone's alt-right. Lacey Green, according to Vox, is alt-right. PewDiePie is alt-right. The biggest star on YouTube is alt-right. Everyone's alt-right. It doesn't mean anything. They're going to label you alt-right no matter what you do, no matter what you say. It is about dissent of opinion. It's got nothing to do with what that opinion is. If you do not adopt the new glorious religion of progressivism whole cloth, you're alt-right now. So who gives a fuck? I even talked about this with a lawyer. I got hit up. You know, well, I saw that there was some people online, and you know me, I will fucking lawyer up. You will be getting cease and desist, motherfucker. Like, you ain't running my name through the fucking mud. I don't know why PewDiePie hasn't sued Vox. We'll talk about that later. But you know, at the end, but here's the problem. This is a defamation specialist with a defamation speciality firm. And they told me alt-right is so overused, it's now just a meaningless term. Some people believe the president is alt-right. How can it in any way be defamatory? It's become it's absurd. It's absurd, you know? And I've seen journalists who use the term alt-right go, yeah, alt-right, doesn't it just mean people on the right who use like alternative media, and it's like, well, no, it definitely didn't mean that. And during the election, you didn't want it to mean that. So what Sargon realized, well, or rather, I mean, I think fallaciously, he wanted to like put some distance between him and the alt-right and show the world how different he is and how he's not a racist. And he like got too over-focused in that. And this is what's happened with the Patreon thing, because he went on a stream. And by the way, this is a guy who, you know, I'd like to think, first of all, I would never go on a stream with a fucking piece of shit like Richard Spencer. No fucking way. Not for all the fucking tea in China. I don't want his fucking stink anywhere near me. He can fuck off. He's going to be consigned to being an embarrassing footnote in fucking history that the media gave him any fucking play at all. So fuck that guy. I'd never sit on a stream and debate that fuck, even though I'm pretty sure I can destroy his fucking ideas quite easily. After all, this is a guy who believes that slavery was beneficial to Africans. I mean, you know, like, I need to fucking even, you know, go over why that's ridiculous. So you go on a stream with Richard Spencer, and then you embarrass yourself by literally not even preparing, or, you know, and Richard Spencer gets you in a series of gotchas, which is terrible optics, because what it looked, you know, the people that are listening, I don't know why anyone would be on the fence. I don't know why anybody would be like, I'm weighing up the pros and cons of being a normal human being and not a piece of shit, or being a neo-Nazi. I'm going to go to a stream and listen to a debate about this before I make up my mind. I don't know why that exists. I don't know why there are people like that out there, if indeed there are. But you know, he literally made Richard Spencer look good, and that is unfucking forgivable. It's unforgivable. You know? I'm not saying punch motherfuckers in the street. I'm just saying let these fools fucking embarrass themselves every time they pop their reptilian fucking faces out. You know, just so he did that, and then he went on that stream, and this is where we'll link into the Patreon thing. He was so adamant that he wanted to try and prove some great intellectual point against the alt-right. He said, "You're acting like a bunch of N-words," and then quickly scrambled and said, you know, like what you say N-words behave like. You're done. You're fucking done. I mean, you know, it's quite telling about the direction UKIP is headed in, that somebody that says something like that is like welcomed in. They want to march with Tommy Robinson. Like, you know, this isn't the UKIP of the sort of middle class Brit that it was under Farage anymore. It's changing for sure. And you know, again, I'm not precious about the use of language or the use of words, but you're on a stream with people who identify as white nationalists, and you're using the N-word to denigrate them. I'm sorry, brother. That was a misstep. That was a misstep. Now, on to the Patreon stuff. That's why they banned him. And it's not, and everything I've just said, there's no way he should have been banned off Patreon. Absolutely no way. He literally didn't violate anything in the terms of service. This was a 10-month-old clip of him saying the N-word in a debate that took place on somebody else's stream, on a YouTube video on someone else's channel. It has no feasible ties to Patreon whatsoever. And this is the thing. Anyone who's watched the podcast, I know I've got some regulars in the chat. What did I tell you 2 years ago? What did I say was going to start happening 2 years ago? I said these big tech companies who've got workers that cross-pollinate, they sit on boards together, they're in think tanks together, they're going to start making concerted efforts to do group deplatforming. I told you this was coming. I've said it for a long, long time, and no one has heeded any of that shit because I'm not big enough. I don't have a big enough following. And, you know, honestly, it's not like it's some great revelation that I plucked out of the air. I think the writing was on the wall. It was pretty obvious that this was going to happen, and it's going to continue happening. Like, it happened to me with Reddit, remember? I didn't get banned off Reddit for shit I did on Reddit.
Didn't alt-right leader Richard Lewis strangle a 7-year-old transgender called Loader at a Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament? Wake up, sheeple.
So, you know, Reddit banned me off Reddit for things I said on Twitter. No, you do not. That, right. One of the things that needs to happen, and this is what I'm talking about, how dystopian society is, right? And that's an overused word, but let me just put it to you plainly how fucked up it is. The average person on the internet is looking to the government to rein in the tech giants so people can speak freely. Think about that. That is like literally, you know, like it's like going to your old fucking school bully 5 years later to come and help you beat up some other dude who's getting in your face. It's like, it's bad news, man. You can't. The government, they're going to welcome regulating this stuff because this is going to be another system of control that we get to use down the line. Are we really going to go to the government to regulate these tech companies 4 years or whatever it's been since all these NSA revelations, since Snowden came out? You know, the government was literally taking nude pictures of you off your phone, turning your webcam on in the middle of the night just to have a scan, see what's going around. Right now, we've got a murder trial going on where it's now it's in a court record that Alexa is fucking recording you all the time. And we're saying to this government who has abused our data, spied on us, turned every mobile phone into a portable spying device, we're saying to them, oh, can you regulate these tech giants, please? Because they're going too far. If the government is the hero in this story, we're fucked. I mean, we're en route to be China. So we need to think long and fucking hard before we let the government regulate these people. And listen, I think what these tech giants are doing, I think what these tech companies are doing is beyond ridiculous. It should just be that they should bring in some legislation that says terms of service can only be has to be enforceable to the letter of the law, and behavior that happens off platform is none of your business. You know, something, you know, that's obviously putting it very simplistically, but you know, so anyway, Sargon said the M word. He said it a bunch of times. He said it in a particularly damning context in this debate where it's like, listen, dude, if you'd set it up instead of just like blurting out the M word and set it up and gone, oh, you know how you don't like black people, you know you say this about black people, you know you say all these racist things, you're behaving like that right now. That would have, you know, you exact same point that you tried to scramble and make. Doesn't look like you just blurted out a racial epithet. And this is what I mean about he's got no fucking planning, forethought, self-control. That it was a completely irrational thing. He got frustrated and he said the M word in anger. I mean, you can't do that and be taken seriously. You can't do it. So, anyway, Patreon pulled him because of that. He literally in no way did anything that violated Patreon's terms. And again, this made me deeply unpopular. Lauren Southern, whom I've met and talked to, I think last time we interacted is when I was doing the Count Dankula fundraising to help him with his appeal. You know, I was glad she got kicked off Patreon. I don't like what she's doing with that Defend Europe bullshit, and I think there was the video footage of her trying to actually block a boat with refugees on it. It's pretty fucking damning that she's not there as a journalist. So, if you're Patreon, do you want to fund people who are literally getting on a boat and stopping boats full of desperate people making it to land? I don't think Patreon should be funding that. I don't think they want to be funding that. And I think the Lauren Southern case was perfectly acceptable. And again, trying to back out of it by going, oh, I'm just a journalist. No, you're not. You're an activist. You're doing everything you accuse the left of doing. You're taking a position. You're not remaining neutral and objective. And you're actively engaging in, you know, this behavior. You're part of the story at that point. So, and again, people saying that like she was vindicated. No way, like no chance. I don't know what people fucking. I don't know what video people watched if they think that. I watched a video where I saw someone posing as a journalist telling the ship's captain to steer the boat in front of a boat full of refugees, endangering their lives. That's right. That's what I saw. So, I mean, you know, again, maybe I've got problems. But, like I said, I know Lauren. You know, she's somebody I would have wanted to like. But on that basis, I can't do it. I think it's unconscionable. I'm not about like people entering countries illegally, but when you do shit like that and you stop them even making it to shore, like, do you know how many refugees die at sea? It's no fucking joke to these people. They've already gone through so much to even make it on the boat.
Wrong, think bad, Trump Fivol. Destroy the alt-right, kill the pretenders.
You know, yeah, and I agree with your assessment. If you're running a risk of drowning somebody to make some fucking nationalistic point, like, yeah, I'm not on board with what I'm all the fucking way out with that. You know, like if you've ever read up on a story of what the average refugee goes through to even get on the boat, then they have to, you know, take these dangerous sea voyages where it's like literally like fucking Amistad or something because they have to hide from, you know, potential people investigating the boat, you know, like the Coast Guard or whatever. And then what, at the last minute, you're going to try and fucking stop them making it to shore? So just inches before at least getting to land, you know, maybe getting some much-needed medical treatment or whatever, you think it's reasonable to stop that. Like, the government will intervene, the government will send them home, but there are laws, there are, you know, there's human rights laws in place. You cannot just be like, you know, it was, Katie Hopkins did this. Katie Hopkins. I don't know if you saw it, but did you ever read that article where she literally said the boats full of refugees coming to the shore, she would get a gunship and blow them out the water? It's unbelievable. Like, if you think like that, you are fucked. Like, you are fucked in the head. You know? So, I got no time for that. Like, I respect the right to a country's borders, but if someone tries to get through that border, you can't just fucking kill them. You know what I mean? Like, a civilized country doesn't do that. So, anyway, so yeah, Patreon kicked Sargon off the platform, and there is literally nothing in the terms of service that enabled them to do this, but they've done it anyway, and he's appealed, and they're standing by it. So now what you've got is there's been this big Patreon exodus, and you know, this is what you have to remember is this is sizable. This is a big deal, because, you know, it's interesting. They kicked Milo off, and again, I still don't understand what Milo's done to be like public enemy #1. I don't get it. I don't get why people are still trying to peddle this idea that Milo's a Nazi or a white supremacist or anything like that. I don't understand it. He's another idiot. It's hard because I've always cared for the guy, because I actually know him in person, but they all make the same mistake. They come up and up and up. They put themselves in the crosshair, and then they don't make any of the necessary sacrifices to be continually delivering the message. You know, after he was on Bill Maher, journalists lined up to take him down a peg or two because they saw Milo was entering the mainstream and they didn't want it. So they found some old footage. And this is what I mean. You got to get your shit correct. You got to fucking, you know, get stuff off the fucking internet or get ahead of the story and renounce it. And they completely misrepresented it. They misrepresented what he said. They said he was a pedophile defender. If you know Milo, no way. He hates that shit. And he hates the normalization of that shit. And he's written many times how he hates the normalization of that shit. But once that's out there, you know, the mainstream aren't going to touch you with a 10-foot pole. And then everywhere he's gone since, you know, boom, close down his Twitter, close down this, close. I mean, this is a guy who got banned off Twitter and accused of being a racist for saying he didn't like Ghostbusters. But then, I don't know if you remember that BuzzFeed story. He's at a party with actual Nazis, and it's like, for fuck's sake, what are you doing? What again? Why are people like so enamored with Richard Spencer? Why don't people see him for the sleazy piece of shit he is? Like, why don't people see that? You know, I wouldn't want to be in the same room as that motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna fucking get up and go to a party and fucking drink and sing while he's in the audience? Fuck that noise, man. That's what I'm saying. I'm not about guilt by association, but there's some people, if you associate with it, their stink's gonna rub off on you. The end. That's how it works. I mean, that's reality. Is it fair? Maybe not. Depends what you're associating with them for, but fuck me, dude. You swerve those pathetic motherfuckers. Yeah, Gavin McInnes did the same shit. He's like, hey, I'm a comedian. Some of your guys have been involved in fistfights with Antifa. Yeah, violence is good. Okay, brilliant. You've now made the Proud Boys a terrorist organization. Well done. You know, to have your little edgy moment. Be fucking smart. Like, well, stop saying all this reactionary nonsense, you know? It's so stupid. So anyway, what started happening now is, because I think most people can recognize that this was a very unfair ban, and it doesn't fall inside the terms of service. There's been a big exodus from Patreon, and it's no small deal, because Patreon, like, their biggest creators were guys like, you know, Tim Pool and Sargon, and, you know, these are like very sizable creators, and all of their audience are now closing down their Patreon accounts, going elsewhere. And remember how Patreon's business model works. You know, they take a fee for the handling of the money. So every time you donate, they take a chunk, you know, kind of like PayPal does as a pay handler. You know, this is bad. There's no doubt about it. I mean, like, and now I don't know if you saw it. Let me get it for you. So I'll hang on, I'm just finding, because Jordan Peterson actually put out a post. Jordan Peterson tweets quite a lot, so you have to scroll through. Yeah, here it is. So Jordan Peterson put up a post on his Patreon, and it was a weird situation, because I think, I'll just slowly move that to the side. I think it was a weird situation, because like, he got called out for being an intellectual coward by like people like Mike Cernovich and stuff like this, and I think he felt compelled to say something. I think he was always gonna take a stand, but obviously, you know, he's got close to 8,000 patrons. Like, there's no doubt that Jordan Peterson makes bank off Patreon. There's no doubt, right? And he said, I've been engaged in a series of intense conversations with many of the people in the so-called intellectual dark web. Hate that term, by the way. Intellectual dark web. What is that? Who the, you know, whatever. Over the last 2 weeks, because of the banning by Patreon of Carl Benjamin, colloquially known as Sargon of Akkad. I am an admirer of Sargon. He was a great friend to me when I was in deep trouble 2 years ago. I think there is no excuse for deplatforming him, particularly when his fundamental crime was defending himself against neo-Nazis. I have been talking continually with the majority of members of the so-called intellectual dark web, and we are determining what steps to take. We thought about moving to alternatively crowdfunded platforms such as Subscribestar, but it isn't obvious that will constitute a long-term solution. Dave Rubin and I, and others, have been discussing the establishment of a Patreon-like enterprise that will not be susceptible to arbitrary censorship, and we are making progress, but these things cannot be rushed without the possibility of excess error. But I'm seriously displeased about the removal of Sargon and many other people, and will definitely do something about it. Rest assured, if you will, one, that I remain deeply grateful for your support and committed to ensure that the money you pledge will be devoted to the highest cause possible, and two, none of this is being treated with casual disregard. So, you know, probably looks like they're going to move. But what's interesting is the the problem that we've got continually coming up is right. They always say, right, this is the thing you get told. Hey, man, they're a private company. Okay? There is no service like Patreon that has ever lasted. Patreon pretty much have a monopoly on this kind of model. There's no two ways about it. There was an alternative, unfortunately, named Hatreon. I don't know why you would ever do that. That went under. And now, you know, like, think about Gab and Twitter. Gab has been... Okay, so Gab is a shithole, right? Gab is full of people who have been banned off other platforms. There is a very hard subsection of people on Gab who are racists, who are Nazis, who go there because no other platform will have them, right? I don't know if you think that's a problem or not. You know, I think if you are committed to free speech, you have to be committed to free speech. Gab say they're committed to free speech. But what's interesting is, you know, Gab have been kicked off web servers, you know, web hosts. They've been, you know, they've been kicked off PayPal. They've been, you know, they've had, they can't advertise on Twitter. They've been kicked off Apple, the App Store, you know, Android. So they tell you, go and make your alternatives. And then when they make your alternatives, you get fucked. No one will work with you because you're making an alternative. You operate outside of this little tech conglomerate of all the woke Silicon Valley motherfuckers. And think about it, right? They did all that to Gab because Gab had Nazis on their platform. Do you remember when that dude on Facebook live streamed him shooting an old man in the face? I remember that. This guy got dumped by his girlfriend. He turned on a Facebook stream and he went out and he killed an old man, waving a gun in his face, making him cry, and then shot him in the face and murdered him. And then afterwards walked off saying, that's for you, bitch, you know? That happened on Facebook, right? Well, why aren't you shutting them down? An actual murder got committed on your platform. There's an argument, a logical argument to say, if he couldn't have been able to live stream it, maybe he doesn't kill that old man. So why aren't web hosts going to Facebook going, you've just fucking live streamed a murder, we're not hosting you anymore? Why isn't that happening? Oh, and I'll tell you why it's not happening. Because there is a fucking Silicon Valley group that all look after each other. In fact, you know, I didn't want to get this deep into it, but let me just find this for you. Where the hell did I put this damn thing? Here it is. You probably won't remember this. It might be a bit before my time talking about stuff like this. 2014 was an interesting year, a lot going on culturally, but there's a lawsuit that proves these companies are in cahoots with each other. This is, oh, it's going to do the XSplit thing again and flash 50 times while it puts the pictures in. Thanks, XSplit. So here we go. This is a report. There was a lawsuit where they had to, Apple and Google had to settle $300 million because they proved that they were working in coordination with each other to artificially keep Silicon Valley worker wages down by not headhunting. I want you to think about that logically. I want you to think about why you would ever do that as two rival tech companies. Why you would agree to drive down competition in your industry and not compete with a business rival and then pay $300 million to the tune of it because it was demonstrably provable that you would, you know, broken these, because they're all in it together, man. You know, like, you know, they've got, you know, Facebook pulled shit like that. Yeah, and there is a lot more behind this story, sure. But you know, but what I'm talking about is that if you think these big corporations in Silicon Valley are like really cutthroat with each other, it's completely not true. They talk to each other, they back each other up on certain things, and they're now starting to enforce a universal terms of service across all services, and you cannot make rivals. You cannot make a rival platform to any of these existing platforms. They simply will not let you do it. And this has been, you know, again, look, let me show you this, right? Think about what services are there like PayPal, right? there are no real alternatives to PayPal. PayPal is kind of ubiquitous, right? So this is what happened to Gab. Okay, think about how if you're processing payments in any way, shape, or form, how important being accepted by PayPal, which is backed up by credit card companies and banks, right? This was when PayPal banned Gab off the back of the synagogue shooting. And again, I've just demonstrated Facebook have had live streamed shootings. Why is this one different? Think how many times think about how many times we've had shooters on Twitter tweet things out. Has PayPal refused to stop working with Twitter? No. That's Twitter, majority owned by Saudi Arabia, by the way. I don't know where that factors in. I'm sure it helps. It's ridiculous. So you cannot even make rival platforms now. Yeah, and listen, I know Gab is infested with Nazis. I just said that, right? But you have to allow these people to create the alternatives and then enforce their terms of service as they see fit. If you don't want to use Gab because there's fucking racist assholes on it, I respect that. But what you shouldn't do is shut down a platform that is dedicated to free speech, that says it's open for all, because a guy on there tweeted some stuff and then went and shot somebody. You will not find a platform that hasn't had a murderer on it or a criminal on it, or you're just not going to, because these platforms, we have to use them. They're now such a big part of our lives. So you are not allowed to build the platform, and lo and behold, it's happening again, right? Because this new one that people are moving to is Subscribestar, and let me just find you this guy. This is what I mean. You are not allowed to ever get out from under it. You have to use these services and only these services. And if you try and make another service, it's a GG. So let me just find this. Hang on. You don't have to make Twitter to be part of your life, don't you think? If you didn't have access to Twitter, don't you think that actually, an argument can be made that you are disconnected from society at large? Don't you? That's like saying you don't have to have an email account. It's unthinkable that you wouldn't have an email account. It's unthinkable. You have to have one. I mean, so Nick Monroe, who I know, sort of picked up on this, and let me just scroll through. He's got another one of his I don't know. The kid has got something wrong with him, but it works out in the end because he doesn't half produce these long super threads about stuff. But, yeah, immediately, once people said we're leaving Patreon and we're going to Subscribestar, right, immediately journalists and blue checkmark types picked up on it and decided that, well, we've got to shut Subscribestar down. And this was the prime offender, a guy called Tim Squirrel. I don't even know who this guy is. He says he's got a PhD, and he writes about online communities. So he's another one of these, hack journalists who just looks to inject progressivism, progressive, what they call progressive ideas into every narrative about it. He's wrote it The Independent and stuff, so say no more. And look, you can see here, he goes, I regret to inform you all that Sargon Cernovich, Ian Miles Chong, and again, what connects these people, by the way? If you say those names to me, right? I've already given you my views on Sargon. I won't retread that, but there's no way Sargon is right-winger figure as people make him out to be. He's actually, he's basically the average boomer now, pretty much, it's not that wild. That's right. Thanks a lot, Faramir. Appreciate it, man. Cernovich is a guy who, in 2016, went from being a pickup artist type guy, you know, who's written some unbelievable things and said some unbelievable things to be edgy and controversial about men and women. He's trying to distance himself from that and be, you know, taken seriously as a journalist. He has actually broken some political stories. He's obviously got some good contacts, but not a journalist in my eye. More of a pundit, a talking head. Very much, you know, a self-made dude who's always been riding the wave of kind of whatever's popular. Ian Miles Chong is a journalist who has a penchant for driving that anti-SJW fodder, you know? And sometimes I disagree with his shit, and some, you know, but again, I'll talk to the dude. I like the dude. I think he's all right, you know? So I don't understand the connection between any of those people, let alone holistically putting them together as if they are in any way the same or hold the same political views or have the same backgrounds or make the same content. I don't understand what he's trying to say here. And this is what I mean. These people think everybody is alt-right. So that's what he's trying to imply. So he goes, Sargon, Cernovich, Ian Miles Chong, et al. Have found a new dodgy, I don't know why it's dodgy, a new dodgy Patreon alternative called Subscribestar, and he ats them to let them know that he's coming, which appears to have started up earlier this year, so it didn't just start up off the back of this, and so why is it dodgy? And is actively courting deplatformed content creators. Yes, these people have to go, like, you cannot just say no company can work with these people and basically have a digital exile. You cannot do that. That is not what, you know. I mean, look, again, there's a lot going on. This is just a stream, so like this is kind of all over the place and not really planned out. But I definitely will do a much bigger, well-thought-out, well-researched video on this, I think, at some point. Because, you know, we just had the Google CEO sit down and provably lie about how there's no bias in search results and, you know, they don't apply. They weren't actively involved in the election when, you know, there's internal emails that were leaked, I think by Breitbart, funnily enough, about how they actually did. They pretty much actively campaigned in key states to get Latino voters up. So it's like, you've lied. You've lied to Congress. If you were anybody else, this would be bad. Anyway, here's what I can find about them. Pitching themselves as free of corporate bullshit or political biases. Don't know why that's a bad thing these days. 2, Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr all started in Feb, but only really picked up on 9th of December after the most recent wave of deplatforming. 3, poor quality English and Russian option on site. 4, they currently, I mean, you know why he said Russian, don't you? I'll let you guys type it in the chat. Why has he said Russian? Why even mention that? You know why he said Russian, right? Because Russian bots, my Russian bots, yeah? Russian collusion, we're all being funded by Putin. You know, just if you don't like Hillary, you know, you're obviously working for the fucking Russian oligarchs, right? It's pathetic. And it's so transparent what you're doing. Like, I hate how this is what I'm talking about. That borderline stupidity. You think I don't know why you're doing that? You think I don't know why you put the word Russian there? You're not just describing language options without a reason for it, you know? 4, they currently appear to have only 65 available stars to subscribe to. Uses the word stars in, you know, inverted commas. Stars are a mix of adult content creators, randoms, and alt-right light types. Hate this term alt-light as well. Alt-light is a term that fucking scumbags like this guy invented to linguistically do guilt by association. What is alt-light? Like, alt-right is already a ridiculous, nebulous term that you use for everybody. But just in case anybody slips through the cracks and you can't nail them being alt-right, you invented alt-light. That's all it is. These are nonsense terms. People shouldn't even use these terms, frankly. To give them the credence by acknowledging them is just ridiculous. There is no such thing as the alt-right. It's garbage. It's an invention. It's an invention so cunts like this get to sound like they actually know what the fuck they're talking about. Stars are a mix of adult content creators, randoms, and alt-light right types, including Thunderfoot. Thunderfoot is a scientist who made a bunch of videos about feminism and how it poisons stuff, and a bunch of atheism videos, and then had a meltdown. You know, don't know his connection to the alt-right. Sargon, he's in UKIP. Don't consider him an alt-right figure. Or, again, gone over him. Count Dankula. Count Dankula is probably the least fascist person you're ever likely to meet. Doesn't have any fascist stances or principles. This is literally a guy who was subject to a very fascistic employment of laws and regulations in his own country. And again, despite having gone on to become a member of UKIP, I wish he wasn't, whatever, and a free speech activist, and having a big YouTube channel. I mean, his YouTube channel's shot up. You know, he's going to be on the comedy circuit. I'm sure he'll do the Fringe. Like, this guy is still standing by his principles and not paying a fine that could take all of that away from him for 6 months, because he'll have to serve a prison sentence. So, I mean, you know, he seems a pretty principled guy to me, and I think what happened to him is actually fascistic, if we want to use the word fascism in any meaningful way. Dave Cullen, already talked about him. He's just an anti-SJW baiting guy. Used to have a computing channel, right? Used to be, what was it, Computing Forever is the YouTube channel name. Tim Pool, independent journalist, definitely a liberal. Had him on the podcast. Ian Miles Chong, journalist, not a fascist, not alt-right, and Mike Cernovich. You know, these people aren't even linked politically. They don't even hold, like, I know for a fact that, like, Sargon and Count Dankula will differ on some things politically, and I know Tim Pool definitely differs from, you know, like a Mike Cernovich or an Ian Miles Chong even, you know. I mean, you have to understand, again, like a guy like Michael Tracy, we also had on the podcast, great journalist, very, you know, he just recently left the Young Turks. He wasn't left enough. Because he kept saying, I don't believe in Russian collusion. And they're like, listen, I don't know if you know what we do here at the Young Turks, but we just hammer Trump all day. And he goes, yeah, well, I'm not interested in that. And now he's out. And now he's back to doing freelance work on the Spectre. Like Mike Tracy's a great journalist. Like, seriously, follow him. And you won't be steered too wrong in terms of finding neutral reporters. And then, look, you can see here. They use PayPal, Amazon Web Services, Stripe, GoDaddy, Sleeping Giants et al. Will probably want to start lobbying that set, giving Subscribe Stars seeming commitment to platforming the alt-right. So this guy is basically actively saying, like, no, there's nowhere for you to go. You want to, if another platform wants to take advantage of Patreon deplatforming these guys, we're not going to allow it. We must stop it, actually. And trust me, it won't stop with, you know, the Sleeping Giants or whatever. It's going to literally kick up. They're going to try and basically shut this website down because they're offering a home to people that Patreon have deplatformed. How is this a free market then? Explain it to me. If you have a propaganda arm of extreme leftists that have the clout because of these tech platforms to go and shut down other tech platforms by lobbying connections at big corporations, explain to me how this isn't a monopolistic network, because it certainly appears that way. And then you can see here, to recap, the deplatformed alt-right, we've already established alt-right is meaningless. Given a new home at Subscribestar, a Patreon alternative owned and run by Starkling LLC, registered in Wyoming, but belonging to Russian national Mikhail Zadorny, who lives in Krasnoyarsk, Russia. So, again, Russian owners, guys, watch out. Russians aren't allowed to be entrepreneurs anymore. Russians can't be entrepreneurs because they stole an election with no evidence 19 months into an investigation. So, again, like, and you know, and you can see the other thing that happens off the back of this. Boom. You know? Subscribe Stars started to enter into the news cycle, and they are gonna come for them, you know. And you can see people here tweeting at them. You're gonna do anything about Subscribe Star? They're courting all the alt-right abusive people banned from Patreon. What did Sargon do that was abusive within the broader context of Patreon? He did absolutely nothing. He said the N-word on a Skype conversation while talking to a neo-Nazi. That is not covered by your TOS in any way, shape, or form, you know. And I think this is the thing that just pisses me off, dude. Like, They wanna use the argument that it's like free market. You know, Patreon's the most successful, and if you don't conform to their ideals, you'll have to go to an alternative. But then when you go to an alternative, they attack the alternative and try and get the alternative shut down. This is fucked up. This is how we head towards government regulation, which, remember, I don't want. You think I trust the fucking government? I don't trust tech people. No, I don't trust Facebook, which have, you know, repeatedly lied about what they do with your data and how much of their data they keep. Same for Google, you know, same for Apple. You know, Apple trying to take a moral stance when they've got child labor in their fucking factories and people throwing themselves out of fucking windows, and people go, hey, what are you doing about all the workers committing suicide in your factories? And they go, hey, we put some nets outside the window. Now let me lecture you about what's morally right. Like, you know, I don't trust these big tech corporations, but I definitely don't trust the government. Who the fuck trusts the government? Would, in any country, anywhere, ever, the political class is your enemy. The end. You know, there is no way of dressing that up. The political class hates you. And we have to go and fucking get the government to come in and stop these guys. Oh, Lordy, Lord, help me. It's over, man. Like, there's no winner in this. Because either big tech gets regulated, and we'll all be cheering it on, right? Like, people like me, who are tired of fucking online censorship, will be going, yeah, woo! I mean, maybe not me, but, you know, maybe I will. You know, it's like, I don't even know what I want. I swing back and forth from day to day, you know? I think... You know, I wake up one day and I go, oh, God, no, like, maybe it's not all that bad. Maybe we just have to, like, take a few casualties along the way and it'll all normalize and level out. Like, people are getting tired of the constant outrage. Maybe it's going to be fine. And then other days I go, holy fucking shit, the government's got to regulate these motherfuckers because they're out of control. And neither is a solution. Neither is a solution. So we definitely need something to change, but I don't know what it would look like. Because these companies are taking the piss now. I mean, they you know, you're lying a fucking Congress. You're acting with impunity. You're now enforcing terms of service universally across for things you do off platform. You know, there's like clauses now where it's like, we reserve the right to just kick you off our business if you do anything that we consider morally reprehensible. And it's like, wait, isn't that the same thing that those homophobic bakers do? And I thought we didn't like that. But to a baker who is a devout Christian and thinks homosexuality is immoral, he's removing you from a private business on moral grounds. It's dangerous. It's beyond a slippery slope at that point, you know? And what'll start happening is one set of values will be regulated and the others won't, and you'll create this huge societal disparity in terms of who can say what and who can operate freely and who's on the right side, and that isn't good. You know, that's far from fucking good. So I do not know, but again, I think we can all see when shit like this happens, when there are no alternatives to a service you provide, and when a service is there, you use all of your clout, which is considerable, to shut down the rival service, and you do it on moral grounds. This is a functional monopoly. It might not be a monopoly to the letter of the law, but it functions the same as a monopoly. There are no alternatives. There are no business alternatives. At that point, you've got to do something about it. Like, there isn't a realistic alternative to Patreon. There isn't. And everyone goes, oh, but Richard, they'll just fund one. Who's going to drop 20 mil into a Patreon alternative now, knowing that you've got woke motherfuckers at PayPal and these companies that can just refuse to work with you? You see, you would need to create an entire alternative network. You would need to have an alternative to PayPal on the same day you have the alternative to everything else. You might even need alternative banks. And again, think about that as a concept. Banks refusing to do business, like MasterCard refusing to do business, and Visa refusing to do business with people based on their morals. You fucking invest in fucking arms deals, for fuck's sake, to make profit for people who have savings accounts with you. This cannot be real. Like, banks can't pose as moral paragons of virtue, but they can in our modern world. You know, this is all symptomatic of bigger problems down the line. This is the start. People can say, oh, it's never going to affect me. Well, it will eventually. It will eventually. You know, there's no way you will be immune. The line will keep moving until it gets to something you care about. And then you're going to go, holy fucking shit, wait a minute. Like, I never thought they'd go there. Authoritarians go wherever the fuck they want. You can't predict what an authoritarian's going to do. They act on whims, by definition. No, listen, I know I've been right about this. I've been wrong about some things. You know, but this stuff, you can just see it. All the pieces are just laid out, dude. You know, it's all there. You can see what's happening. So, yeah, whatever. I mean, if you guys, if like, you can ride it out. You know, if you guys don't feel that strongly about it, by all fucking means, maybe you think Sargon should be banned. Maybe you want to ban everyone who's ever said the M-word ever. You know, maybe context doesn't matter. Maybe we need to really step up policing language. You know, maybe we need to shut down free thought for the next 50 years so we can get to some sort of utopia down the road. Maybe you think those are all reasonable positions. I don't. And yeah, there's nothing I can do about it. Now, to the question that sparked the rant was, are we going to close our Patreon for By the Numbers, which is a Counter-Strike podcast? You know, I would say this. I would like, I'm 100% down for that. Like, I never really cared too much about the money. The money was more of a way to basically put me and Thorin in the same room, because to basically to justify, you know, Thorin's time, there has to be some money there. I mean, it might very well have been something that we would have done, but it's, you know, look. You might say, oh, it's only 2 hours. There's time commitments. You know, we have to, like, you can already see how busy we all are. We're doing it on different days. We're always scrambling to hit, like, the 4 a month that we commit to. And, yeah, I mean, like, it's not my decision to make. It's a collective decision. Now, Duncan's very principled. He might want to support it. There's Sam to consider. You know, we need to think about Sam as well. So do we, you know, do we move away from doing the show altogether? Do we close the Patreon down? Like, 'cause I wouldn't set up an alternative. That feels like a waste of time. Like, seriously, this Subscribe Star thing, again, my concerns are this. I don't know if it's, like, secure with your data. It's a website that doesn't have a reputation. Patreon is very much the devil I know, but sure, I want to take a stance against this. But I need to talk to Thorin and Sam, basically. Like, I can't just make the decision. It's not fair. It's like $1,000 out of Duncan's pocket and $500 out of Sam's pocket, because literally we would then have to start doing By the Numbers just as a free thing. And then, you know, I mean, yeah, no, I remember when Thorin said he was going to do By the Numbers, even, you know, there has to be, like, some money there. Because think about how it works for Duncan, right? Duncan comes on to my stream. I get the viewers. I get the followers. I get the subs. I get the donations. He sits there for 2 hours, 2.5 hours sometimes. I get the benefit of his brand. Then I get the VOD, and it goes on my YouTube channel, and they're the only videos that come close to making money when they're not demonetized. So I get all of that. Like, it's entirely my thing now. So the way to offset and make it worth Duncan's time was by having the community pay for it. Now, you know, I don't know what we. This guy's actually starting to annoy me. Been kind of like might just give him a little timeout, see if that realigns his perceptions. But yeah, it's like, so I can't make the decision because it's like super unfair on Duncan. It's super unfair on Sam, you know. I'm sure there are like alternatives, but there aren't any alternatives that just operate with the sort of like clean simplicity of Patreon. So it's like, you know, I'm in a catch-22 now because if I leave the Patreon up, it makes me look unprincipled, like I don't really care about any of this stuff I've just ranted about for an hour, which I do, but also as well, like you say, it's not about my money. It's $1,000. I couldn't care less. I'd piss on it, you know, whatever. But it's Duncan's money. It's Sam's money. Like, if we all agree, I mean, you know, maybe there's something we work out. You know, maybe we do it on Twitch, and then we have like a 20-minute, you know, where it's like if people donate, instead of being a Patreon where you get to ask a question, we do Q&A. Yeah, I mean, you know, but it's a tough one, and I can't really kill the show. I mean, like it's the staple of my YouTube channel, isn't it? The YouTube channel, you know, I've got an obligation to rivalry. Like there's a lot to consider, so it's a tough one. It's a tough one. What are the difficulties of direct creator funding? I mean, like, it's just, you have to, like, basically, I mean, you've seen all these guys, you know, like Nick does it. Here's my PayPal. Send me stuff through PayPal. It's just like, there's no real, like, incentive to, like, sign up and have, like, recurring payments and stuff, and you know, I think as well, once you move into the realm of, like, okay, so for tax purposes, I can download my entire output on Patreon if I needed to, if I got audited, right? You know, it's all there. PayPal donations, it's a little bit more like you have to go through everything, work it out, who did it come from, what for, is it deductible, is it this? It does create an issue, and it's like, it's almost like a black economy in a lot of ways. Like, I think if you have a service where it's like, listen, I will give you X if you pay Y, and it's automated, you know, like subscribing on Twitch. You know, you subscribe because you like the content. You subscribe because you want to help fund the content. You want to incentivize me to do it more. And we've got subs in this channel have been around for a long time on that basis, right? And I've never asked. I've never come out and said I need the money or anything like that. It's your sub. If it's a Prime one, it's not even an issue, but it's your money, and you spend it as you want. Like, because I'm all right. I'm financially okay. But that, to me, is fine. When you start saying, hey, send me some money via PayPal if you like my stuff, I don't know. That's like begging to me. I don't know if I'd do that ever. But that's probably my own fucked up shit. So... So anyway, we can wrap up all of the Sargon stuff just with, you know, it's a disgrace he was removed from Patreon for literally not violating their terms of service. They couldn't even explain what he'd done when approached. It's embarrassing, and it's the sign of the times, man. You're not allowed on these platforms, dude. They went after people's PayPals recently. You're not allowed the PayPals. I'm sure Sargon's going to get got on that soon. Like, seriously. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Each time they take a measure, they watch the reaction and how much it harms their bottom line. And if they can realistically, fiscally get away with it, then the next company will do the same. The next company will do the same. This has generated because the media are never gonna do anything except applaud. You know, the press are just going to be like, good on you banning Sargon. I heard he's a racist. You ever listen to anything he had to say? No, but he's a racist. And he's a UKIP and they're racist. And everyone who watches him on YouTube's racist. And yep, so ban all the racists. Ban everyone who's not some woke fucking hipster working for a media company, please. And then it's like, holy fucking shit. I hope you realize your audience don't pay any money. That's why all these companies go fucking broke. So... yeah, it's a real problem. I don't know if it's a problem that's going to be fixed. It's clear they're not going to reinstate him. Like, Jack Conte has been conspicuously absent, hasn't he? So, like, this is the difference. With Lawrence Southern, Jack Conte, you know, the founder of Patreon, came out and he did a video addressing the community where he showed her video and then talked about, you know, what the buzzwords, you know, manifest observable behavior. MOB is the acronym. I'll let the jokes write themselves. And he came out immediately and said, this is why we banned her, and we believe in political diversity and freedom of thought, whatever. Lots changed in a year, guys. Like, you know, they do not believe in that. In fact, actually, believing in stuff like that is considered very dangerous because you have to look at it from their mindset. First of all, they believe guys like Sargon are radicalizing people. And by radical, they mean we just won't put up with any of your fucking progressive nonsense. We don't think Santa Claus should be gender fluid. You know, we don't think universities should have snapping instead of clapping. We don't think that we should be compelled legally to use certain words in place of others. You know, like there is a little overlap. So I never believed the bullshit about, you know, Gamergate and the alt-right and the Russians and the racists and the Nazis and the Trump supporters. You know, it's not there. You have to imagine. But again, it comes down to the Venn diagram. The one thing that was happening in the gaming community, and this was going back to 2012. 2014 was just the fucking straw that broke the camel's back. People were already pissed off with the state of games journalism years before, and I know because I was there and working in it. You know, what happened was that they were just tired of what happened to reviews about games. You know, why is all this nepotism happening? Why is it any game's critique now isn't about how the game performs? Is it a good port from console to PC? What's the fucking gameplay like? You know, how much content is there in the game? No, it was all about this game has a terrible message, and why isn't the main character a lesbian? And so it's like, listen, okay, there is a place for this. There is a place for the application of feminist theory, of addressing issues of racial disparity. There is a place for this in games criticism. There is a place for this, but it must be approximately 10% of your output. You are a consumer-driven business first and foremost. You cannot make it 90%. The overwhelming majority of coverage is all about this shit, because it's not what your audience wanted. And then when you start factoring in, oh, hey, this developer knows this journalist, and this journalist donates to this person's Patreon, and they're writing reviews, and they're saying the game's great because of its message, and yet everybody else hates the game. You know? This is what the Gamergate revolt was about. It was just like, people just got sick of that shit. And there had been so many moments where, again, if the game's press had just like took one on the chin and just said like, you know, I will just ignore this, kill it with silence. Gamergate goes away in 7 days. It goes away in 7 days. It's just an internet happening, and the next one comes along and we all move on. But they didn't do that. They doubled down and they started saying everybody who criticizes a games journalist is a sexist, a racist, we're the most oppressed group on planet Earth, and gamers are scum. And it's like, what is happening here? Like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you writing gamers are dead all on the same, spread across 2 days, 10 articles all on the same theme at major publications, because you're all in a Slack group with each other or a Google email group or whatever it was. Why are you doing this? And they're still doing this, and you still manifestly observe their behavior that they're doing this. You can tell, like, remember that Spider-Man? Spider-Man is a cop now, and it sucks. And what about Black Lives Matter? And what about police brutality? And what about this? And what about that? And it's like, wait, there's like 5 articles all like this on the same fucking day or within like 2 days of each other? Like, I know what's happening here. This isn't, you don't just randomly all write the same shit. So you went from, okay, the only thing that the gamers and a right-wing voter and a Trump supporter and all these other groups that they lump together has in common is they're just tired of your fucking overly progressive bullshit, and that's the only overlap. In fact, the average Trump supporter probably hates gamers. The average, I'm just guessing, all right? It's just a thought. But I mean, Donald Trump certainly doesn't like gamers. He thinks violent video games encourage real life violence. He's a moron. So what do you do with that? And it's just like, you have to understand that's the only connection. And if you are tired, like I've told you, if you go, progressivism is a religion now. It's like Scientology. Progressivism is like Scientology in the sense you must absolutely come in, believe everything whole cloth. They tell you you are sick, and they can make you whole. And they use positive reinforcement. Every time you say something woke, do something woke, denounce somebody doing something non-woke, they give you very clear verbal rewards. They abuse every piece of power they hold to get you better jobs, get you better reviews, say you're doing better things. And again, it's all manifestly observable. It's all real. This is all happening. This isn't Richard Lewis has lost his mind at 2 a.m. This is all true. And then they reinforce you so that you get positive reinforcement. You also get negative reinforcement. Every time you do something bad, they go after you. They take your job away. They leverage their media landscape to basically make you the villain of that particular day, and they all come after you. And the only way out of it is to basically disappear, relent. You'll never work again. They'll never let you forget about it. Even if you apologize, they're still going to be fucking you 4 years down the line because you went against the great religion. Scientology do the same with their lawyers. Anyone who criticizes Scientology, they lawyer up, they go after you. You don't get those plum Hollywood roles anymore. All of a sudden work dries up because of their extensive network of connections. Tell me, by the way, people not seeing the fucking similarities. The overlap between fucking Scientology and this progressivism cult is insane. It's, and again, remember, they tell you you're sick when you come in, and then they give you the tools to get better. Again, like Scientology with the Dianetics. You're broken. You've got a fucking, what is it? You've got a thetan inside you, and we can help you get rid of all that regressive life trauma of being blown up in a volcano. And it's all fucking nonsense, dude. And if you stand up to it and you say, like, enough's enough, like, I think you're just stupid. I support some of the things you say, not all of them. Like, just leave me alone. You're a Nazi. You're a Nazi in the same way that, what is it they call people who don't believe in Scientology or are aggressive towards Scientology? They call them undesirables or something, right? So what do? You're never getting away from it. You're never breaking out from it. So, shame.